Hello again. This week the students put the spindles and new brake hoses on the Isuzu Trooper project. We did a little bit of brake work on a VW Jetta. And this vehicle here, a 1986 Buick Grand National, which is basically a Regal with a turbo, came to us many years before we started doing this show. Had some engine issues, ended up having two burnt exhaust valves. So we took the top end off of it, replaced the valves, machined everything else, put it all back together with new pressure regulator and new injectors. We also installed body bushings all the way around. And then it sat for a little bit, but now it's time to get this thing wrapped up. So what you're going to see the students do today is install a new gas tank. Hope you enjoy it.
With the new ball joints installed and the CV joints put back together, the students get busy putting the spindles back on. With the ball joints tightened down, it's time to put the cotter pins in. We did a segment in an episode a couple of years ago on how to correctly install a cotter pin, and this is how it's done. This vehicle is getting all new brake hoses as well. First step is to disconnect the hard lines from the rubber line. Next, they remove the clip securing the rubber line and remove it. Then the new line goes in. The retainer clip goes in place. Then the hard line gets reconnected. Then the process continues for the remainder of the hoses. We had a 2016 Volkswagen Jetta donated to us last year. Just now getting around to doing a little brake work on it. The front caliper pistons can be pushed back like normal, but the rear calipers require a special tool to spiral the pistons back in place. The tooling fits into notches in the piston, pressure is put against it, and then it is spiraled back into the caliper. The job's a little more involved than simply pressing them back. We're machining the rotors for the Volkswagen as well. The first step is to make an initial cut in the center of the rotor. Then we'll feed it out and then back in by hand. Then we'll run it all the way in.
Make sure that goes around. Look, it's not going around.
Then we put a silencer band on it to help absorb the harmonic vibrations created by the lathe. Now it's time to start cutting. They'll move each one of the blades in, 0.02 of an inch, and then the machine will feed it out at a consistent speed to make the cuts. And we'll continue doing that until we get the faces true and clean. You can see here the outboard side of the rotor is starting to clean up nicely. We'll soon be ready for a finish cut. With the rotor cut and trued, it's time for a final cut. We need to get rid of the concentric rings left by the lathe, so we're using an angle grinder to put a non-directional finish on the rotor, which will help seat the new pads. First step in putting the tank together is to put our new O-ring gasket onto the tank before installing the fuel pump assembly. With the fuel pump assembly in place, we'll put on our lock ring and knock it around gently with a screwdriver to secure it. Then the strap cushions go into place and the tank goes back into the car.
Leo, you gotta move it right.
The bracket that supports the pedals wasn't quite put in correctly from the factory, so it was causing us some problems. So we're grinding that down and we're going to push it back through the frame and then weld it so that they're straight. Next time on Bulldog Builds, with the spindles installed on the Isuzu Trooper, we put the rotors on and set bearing preload. The students will install a new radiator and a Saturn view. And with the deadline looming on the pedal car, we'll have more footage of that to share with you. And we'll also see if we can get that Buick Grand National running. See you next week.